back out by Jamie Baker. Yushkevich wheels it back in. Lindros lost. Archibald takes him out of the play. Up with it is Recchi. Walks in front. Shot one, knocked down. Rebound, score! Lindros!
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
And we are back. It is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode 135. The Flyers are 7 games into the season at 4-2-1. And before we get into anything here, let's get with our panel. And, of course, with me, Chef to the left B. How are you, man?
Very good. Glad to get the band back together.
Yeah.
All three of us together. Nice.
Yes, the itinerant one. He is also known as the great Dan Silver.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
All right. How you been? How was your trip?
I'm good. Yeah, no, I was just was out in Vegas for work. It's always I hadn't been out there. I usually am out there about once a month before the pandemic, just because my company's based out there. But I hadn't been out there since the pandemic, so it was really nice to get out there. And it's always one of the different things about being out there is the start time of the games. So I'm working full days out there, and by the time I get out of work, the game's basically almost over. So it's a big difference being out on the West Coast. But no, I love Vegas. It's a great city, and it's a great place to go to a hockey game. I went to the Eagles game, so I got to see the new football stadium, which was really nice. Obviously, being in Vegas, you get a lot of fans from the away teams coming in, so It creates just an unbelievable atmosphere at the stadium. And, I didn't see any fights in the stands, probably because the Eagles were getting their butts kicked. So Eagles fans were kind of just sitting on those butts instead of going at it with Vegas fans. But it's always great being out there. Yeah, it's a different world. But hopefully the pandemic's lifting a little bit and we'll be able to travel a little more. And Flyers look decent, I would say.
Yeah, that's there's a little good, there's a little bad. I think it's more good than bad. We see some things that are the exact opposite of last year, Dan. And coming through with the record they have, some of the games they played. Of course, we had a real clunker versus Calgary. They just had no legs and all that. But the standout game of this 2-1 trip had to be what I think will be a classic, even as we look back on the season. From the playoffs is that 5-3 victory over the Oilers, and I'm wondering how much of that game you got to see.
Yeah, I saw a decent amount of that Oilers game, and it really highlights even the Calgary game was a 4-0 loss, but to me those two games really highlight one of the most important things that's happened so far this season, which is that Carter Hart looks like he's back in form and maybe even on an upward trajectory. I mean, he was fantastic in the Edmonton game. I thought he was very good against the Flames. No one else showed up. which I wasn't surprised by, because the Flames have been a good team this season. And look, those back-to-back games like the Oilers and Canucks games, I mean, there was a lot of emotion going on in that Oilers game, a lot of back-and-forth hockey. I think if they'd lost that game, they might have ended up losing to Vancouver. But I feel like they won that Edmonton game, and then they kind of rode the momentum of that game into playing a really good, sound hockey game against the Canucks the next night, and got wins out of both those games. And I think they just ran out of gas a little bit against a really good Flames team. But Hart was fantastic. And to me, that's kind of been one of the biggest positives so far this season. And Martin Jones has been really good too. So the goaltending, which was such a big problem last year, to me looks like, based on what we've seen, that it's going to be positive this season.
Yeah, I think Martin Jones was as good against the Canucks as Mikko Koskinen was bad for the Oilers the night before. Yeah. Chef, what are your impressions about that game?
Well, I thought it was great. It was good to see them come out and firing on all cylinders. It seemed like they got contributions from all the lines, which was a good thing, because going down the stretch there, you see how, I know Dan had mentioned it a couple of times, and we've heard it through all the other podcasts and all the other people we've had on. The Metro is going to be a bitch this year. I mean, and you need to hang in there. So you need to have these gritty wins, and you need to have production from all four lines, and they did. And to Dan's credit too, I didn't see the game on Saturday. I was otherwise detained, but from what I saw on the highlights, you're right. Carter Hart did come through. It looked like he's settling in nicely. I don't know if I'll say he's back yet, but he's settling in nicely. And if they can keep up this pace, they'll be in good shape come, the playoff time and other things to come. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. There's more good than there's bad, but also too, they seem to be improving on the bad as well, from the mistakes that they made earlier on in the preseason and maybe the first three games so far.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that first Edmonton goal where I thought Carter was really out of position to make a save on that backhand, I forget, was it Barry, Tyson Barry, perhaps? Yeah. Other than that.
Well, also, too, it didn't look like it hit off of somebody's foot and changed like a weird angle, too, and kind of rode up a little bit higher. I know he probably should have had it just by his positioning, but is that the one where you're saying he ducked a little bit?
I'm picking at nits, but there is no way he could have stopped the shot with the proper trajectory at all. Someone said he did a reverse VH when it just. No. Someone said that he did the wrong type of move, a reverse vertical horizontal. It just wasn't called for in that save. But again, I'm picking it. It's he has shown at times in the Vancouver game at home where it was shaky in the second period, the team has been a little shaky in the second period. But before we get to any of that, one thing we're seeing improvement in, and Dan, I'll go to you. The Flyers definitely seem to be influenced by Cam Atkinson's shoot-first mentality. Nothing was more emblematic of that than in that first period with the 0.6 seconds left. He just takes a swinging bunt at a shot that was kind of dug up from his skates, and he gets it past Koskinen. It's a really tough shot to read. And between that and the fact that even though they're taking tons of penalties, which we will get to that because that is a problem, they're doing a decent job so far of killing them, that they can just cut back a little bit because they lead the league in penalties per 60. So, but at least right now, the PK is doing better, and they are looking to shoot more, as evidenced and led by Cam Atkinson.
Yeah, that line's been fantastic. I mean, Brassard, Atkinson, and Farabee have been really good this year. I mean, I think all those guys their advanced metrics are terrific. Their regular metrics, they're all around +8 or +9. And Atkinson brings that shoot first mentality. I mean, we talked all offseason about what are these new guys going to bring, and Chuck Fletcher wanted them to, I think, most importantly, bring kind of like more of a team cohesiveness, both on and off the ice. We've seen that. These guys are sticking up for one another. There's going to be no repeats of a Rangers debacle where you lose 9-0 and don't have any response in the game. So I think that's been really good. They've got some toughness with McEwen, and obviously what they bring on the ice in terms of scoring ability. We see with Atkinson where he's a shoot first guy, and he is not afraid to fire away. And I think it's rubbing off on the rest of the team a little bit. It seems like Giroux is shooting him a little bit more this year than he normally does. Mm-hmm. And the third line has been buzzing. They just haven't been scoring. But yeah. I think that I mentioned Carter Hart and the goaltending as being one of the big positives. I think, the other positive is what the new guys have brought both on and off the ice. So, I mean, that's been a good thing. There's a lot of debate on Twitter about Atkinson versus Voracek, and I forget, the Andy and Rano account, and they do all kinds of player cards had made a comment after the trade, the Atkinson-Voracek trade, basically saying, like, Chuck Fletcher thinks that Atkinson is, better than Voracek, LOL or, LMAO. And it wasn't the opinion, the basic opinion of the two players that was so ridiculous about that tweet. What was so ridiculous about that tweet was that Chuck Fletcher, anyone who follows his team knows that he was trying to change the culture of the team. So it wasn't as much about on-ice performance as about, getting a shoot-first guy who's better in the locker room than Jake. And clearly, that's what Atkinson has brought. I still will be surprised if he ends up with more points this season than Voracek, but he'll end up with more goals. And I think that, from what this team needed, it's more of what they needed.
I agree. I mean, that kind of condescension from the actuarial crew, like them and Michael BM, I just keep talking. Just keep telling us that Valeri Nichushkin had a better year a couple of years ago than Leon Draisaitl. And, you'll bathe yourself with glory. So this is what we're dealing with sometimes. You got to take your eyes off the spreadsheet sometimes and just watch the games. It's clear, like Dan said, Chef, that it's about the mix, the chemistry, the synergy, what the team needed. TK looks to be a little bit more of a willing shooter. There is an issue, though. I mean, for me, I think the Flyers' three top lines are in the top 12, or at least they were going into the Calgary from an advanced metric perspective. I still think that if they start to slump a little bit, that line with Brassard, I'd switch out Farabee for Oscar, because I think Oscar could give that line a little bit more muscle, and that maybe they could use, maybe not. I mean, if they whip the puck around enough, the size is not as big a deal, but they haven't actually scored a 5-on-5 goal. I think JVR got his goal on a power play.
Yeah, and Lawton was something else too, but no, you're right. I think for now, like you take that "it's not broke, don't fix it" mentality. Right, I think they're playing good enough. The third line, it seems like they're buzzing, and when JVR got his goal, I thought, okay, maybe they'll start to break out, but he got it on a power play, so it's a little bit. But they've played really good. Oscar has been phenomenal at puck possession and working the boards. You can tell he's back. All along with the lines, I think I'm not touching anything right now until I see it's broke. And if you start to see Brassard play dip, Dan, I just pulled it up. Dan's right. It's like they're 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 7 is that top line. The Fabby line. They've been fabulous. You can't make a joke. It's right there. But what's been most impressive to me, and we didn't get to it yet, but I'm just going to throw it out there, is how the season Braun's been having so far. He's, again, becoming like that unsung hero. He's jumped up into Ivan Provorov's as his partner when Ellis hasn't been around, and he's just played. It's great because I think Jason Martinez said it on one of his podcasts. He was like, yeah, they're like offensive linemen. When you don't hear their name called, it's a good thing. And you haven't. It's just been solid play, and he's been a +7. Somebody that I kept hearing all the last two seasons, like how he's a defensive liability, has been able to elevate his game. And the reason why I'm mentioning all this is it all comes back to what ties into what we just originally started talking about. Was he didn't go out and sign Cam Atkinson because he thought he was better. He didn't sign better player, he signed attitude. And he changed the attitude, the culture, everything. And a little bit is rubbing off on everybody in that locker room. Everybody that came in has made a difference, a huge difference. And that's what this all is. And you're reaping the benefits of it right now.
Yeah, I don't know how long I want Braun on that top line, but for now he's filling in. That is something we do have to discuss because, Dan, if you listen to Bill Meltzer, he seemed to allude to the fact that Braun might have groin injury, some kind of core muscle problem. And apparently we found out today it's very similar to what kept him on the sidelines during the exhibition games. And they're not going to be able to patch over that for much longer.
You're talking about Ellis or Braun?
Ellis. Yep.
Yeah, well, look, that's the elephant in the room, right? I mean, if Ryan Ellis is out for an extended period of time, and then we don't know what's going on exactly with him, but as if you mentioned, as Bill Meltzer, I guess, was alluding to, I didn't see it, but if he was alluding to that, it was kind of like a core muscle type of groin injury. I mean, that could be a really big problem because that's the risk. We all said that, Ellis is exactly the kind of guy that they needed to bring in. He was number one on my list, but the problem is that he's had a history of missing, anywhere from a fifth to a quarter of the season in a number of seasons across his career. And I feel like it's borrowed time with Justin Braun playing this well on the top pair.
Yeah.
So God forbid that they announce that Ryan Ellis needs some kind of surgery and he's going to be out for a couple months. Like, if that happens, I could see this team going on a downward spiral. I mean, that's the real risk right now for me is what's going on with Ellis and how long it is before Hayes is back. Because the third line, with Lawton and Lindblom, those guys have been playing pretty well, and JVR, but the fact that they're playing this well and not scoring is kind of an issue as far as I'm concerned, because I think their play might drop off a little bit, and then they, I feel like they need to be cashing in on the chances that they've gotten. So even though we've discussed some positives with Hart and kind of what the new guys are bringing, I think that there's another path that this could go on if Ellis is out for a while, where things could unravel fairly quickly, especially with the teams that they're going to be playing against. As Chef mentioned, their division is really stacked, and their schedule is pretty difficult. I mean, you look at what's coming up. Okay, you got the Coyotes on Tuesday. That should be a win. After that, you got the Penguins, the Caps, the Maple Leafs, the Hurricanes, the Stars, the Flames, the Lightning, the Bruins, the Lightning, the Panthers, the Hurricanes. I mean, this is a tough schedule. So if Ellis is out for a long period of time, I'm very concerned.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The Hurricanes are 8-0 with a plus 21. So already. So,
yeah.
They took some hits over the summer, but they're doing well. Chef?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with Dan. If he's out for an extended period of time, I don't think Braun can sustain that. I think this is a temporary fix for now, but I kind of have to, and just because of everything he's done in our offseason, and we've talked about it a couple of times, we really don't expect this roster to be so similar if the Flyers are in contention and at by the trade deadline. So I just think that if there's a situation where Ellis won't be able to be back and it's an extended period of time, I think he pulls the plug, and I think he makes some kind of trade or makes some moves to get somebody in here, or maybe the young kids. But I don't think you could trust, and I'm not saying it to be negative. I just think, like we talked about, the Metro is so tight. You can't bring a York up or a Zamula up and do a try by fire. I don't think it's rational thinking. You need these guys to grow at the Phantoms are having a hard enough time right now as it is. You don't need to throw them into an NHL situation where they ain't got their cores and their fundamentals down yet. So Yeah, I just don't see it as a situation where if it is a long-term situation with Ellis, I think he's going to make a move. He's got to make a move.
Yeah, neither is Mula or York are really ready. I think Zmula right now is actually playing more intelligent pro-style hockey. We'll get to the Phantoms in just a little bit. But the other part, there are two other things to be concerned about. One that is completely controllable. The other one could be habitual. First, what I'm referring to is the number of penalties, as I referred to earlier, how the Flyers lead the league in number of penalties per 60. And I get that the league is going through an adjustment period, and there appear to be phantom penalties where you just shake your head and like totally out of the flow of the game, a technical call that just, I think they're it's like a mirage sometimes. But some of the calls, a lot of them have been warranted and show discipline, like the late McEwen penalty, I believe, in the Edmonton game, and then Thompson took a bad penalty. I think it was against the Bruins, or I forget which team it was. They were at home in the first 4 games, and you got to avoid that stuff, particularly if you're worried about the PK and you want to get into a groove, because when you're shorthanded that much, it just kills your energy and the flow. For some guys sit on the bench for a lot longer than they should. So that and the second periods, Dan, can you explain why the Flyers are getting outscored 2-1 in the second period? Is it the emphasis on getting that fresh start, and then mentally they let down? Like, what's on your mind?
It's funny, right? For a number of years, we had a team that was unable to come out strong in the first periods, and now we've got a team that comes out strong and then sags in the second period. So I don't know. Your explanation is as good as any, that they've put an emphasis on really coming out strong, but you're not going to be able to play that way the whole game. So then maybe the second period is kind of a sag period. I wish I had a better answer for you on that. It's early in the season, so I think it's tough to draw any conclusions from a sample size about something like that. But yeah, hopefully they can clean that up. And yes, obviously they need to start taking fewer penalties, because that just disrupts the rhythm and flow of the game. So, but I have no special sauce, no special answers on the second period sags.
Yeah, comparing these numbers here. In 7 games, the Flyers have outscored their opponents 11-5 and outshot them 74-58, I believe, in the first period. Go to the second period, they're being outshot 90-52 and outscored 10-6. And you have to think, with the way Hart and particularly Martin Jones have played, if they fall back even a little bit, it could be that much worse. So, again, it's early, but these are trends that they're obviously talking about in the locker room, that's for sure. So, okay. So, Chef, the Flyers are 23.8% on the power play, and they're 80% on the PK. But it looks like the Flyers are going to make some changes on the PK. And in something that's baffling to me, they're going to have Provorov on the first power play unit, and Keith Yandel, I think, is being moved. I don't even get that a little bit.
Yeah, why? This is confusing to me for many reasons, but the primary reason is this was a selling point of Yandel. I mean, I don't think he's done a bad job on the power play. I think he's done a pretty decent job. It looks completely different to what it has in the past, which I'm very appreciative of, because what we were seeing before was the same thing we were seeing for almost 6 years. I could have told you about who was going to shoot, who was going to pass. So if it's predictable to a layman like me, I can imagine what other defensive coaches on opposing teams are looking at it going, oh, yeah, just stay right there. It'll come back to you, So I don't understand that. I don't understand why they would change that, because especially with how much they talked about how Yandel's going to improve the power play, how he's a different dynamic, how he sees the ice, he sees things, his passing is so crisp. It befuddles me. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah. The good news.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, I just totally agree with Chef. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me already taking Yandel off the power play, the top unit. We know what Ivan Provorov is on that power play. And maybe they're just trying to get him going offensively because he only has 1 assist, but I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be putting him on the top power play unit just to try and get him going. It's hard to understand a lot of times what Therrien's doing with the power play. Obviously, they made a big AV placed an emphasis on the fact that he really wanted to move Atkinson up to that top power play unit as a reward for how well he's been playing so far this year.
Yeah.
But it also is going to move Giroux over to the right side, which is, I think a lot of us agree that that's not ideal. I think they want him on the right side with Atkinson and Konechny as the trigger men, because they're both right-handed shots.
Yes,
but,
yes. That's the
so
point.
that kind of makes sense a little bit, but I will see what happens. But yeah, Provorov is just not as good on the power play as a Keith Yandel. It's a little strange to me, and it reeks kind of desperation, which I don't really think was needed at this point.
No, and one of the things that the power play, when it did look really in sync, was that it had a flow to it. Guys were really getting shots off. They're getting good looks, a lot of one-timers. Maybe they want Giroux to float back to the point and hit another bomb like he did against the Panthers. And that gives them 3 shooters the way G is going at it. But, yeah, to me, Provorov gums up the works on the power play. He's not a natural player on that unit, in my humble opinion. So we'll have to see what goes with that. Look, we don't want to be too judgmental. As they're experimenting and looking at different things, maybe Yandel's had some bad defensive tendencies that have left them open. He has made a couple mistakes that led to breaks the other way, but the power play looked a lot better. So we'll have to see what goes there. So that's where we're at right now with the Flyers. And like Dan mentioned, the schedule ahead. Tomorrow night they play versus Arizona, and then they play at Pittsburgh on Thursday, Saturday at the Capitals. Then they have like a 3-day break. We'll hit you back with another show with a special guest. Then on Wednesday they play at home against Toronto, and then they're back on the road, back-to-back versus Carolina and Dallas, at Dallas. So, wow, a lot of hockey against some good teams, a lot of parity in the league, and a lot of parity in the Metro. But, there's not a lot of parity in Lehigh Valley, Chef. It's really not going very well for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And, I was looking at Alex Appleyard, and he had some numbers that it's like they're 31st out of 31 teams in goals, in shots, and on their power play is 6.3%. They look listless. And it looks like they're not being coached to their ability. And it brings to mind that Ian LaPrairie has never been a head coach before at any level that I'm aware of. And they have some players they really need to develop. Tyson Forster, Morgan Frost, Cam York has not looked that sterling. Zamula, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of outplaying York right now in terms of looking pro-ready. It's a tough situation. I'm wondering how long the Flyers are going to monitor that.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, I made a joke about I was a little bit of banter with somebody like talking about it. We were trying to, I guess, go back and forth a little bit to decipher what's going on, and they're like, this is what happens when a guy takes a puck to the face for the team. And I'm like, well, it was kind of, in reality, it was 2 pucks, so maybe he gets a longer leash. I don't know, but my thing is this, is I'm worried that, from what I've read and what I've heard, he's come in with a hard-nosed attitude. Well, that you're going to work, you're going to be in shape, and that's fine and dandy, but you have to be relatable to players too. And I was very hopeful at the beginning of summer when they got him in, and I was like, okay, maybe he's picked up a little bit of here and there. He survived 3 coaches, so he kind of can probably pick and choose what he feels is best from each of them and kind of develop his own style. So I mean, I'm more concerned. Like somebody had said, tweeted out, maybe the Flyers prospects aren't just that good. I'm like, okay, maybe, but it's more likely at this point that the players are not responding to the coach because, I mean, they've just been flat out. I mean, just came out flat in their last 2 games, and there's something to be said about the coaching. I mean, I don't know how much longer you put up with it because you're kind of relying on Morgan Frost and maybe even Cam York being available at the end of the season, and to waste their time developing in the minors. I don't see this going on for much longer, maybe 5 games, 10 games at most.
Huh. You know, Dan, the big concern is with some of the big names there, the main thing is to develop these kids, but you want to get them in an environment, a winning environment, so it doesn't overwhelm what they're trying to do.
Yeah, you know, like I haven't seen a Phantoms game this year, so it's a little bit hard to comment, but there's a couple things at play, right? I mean, one of them is has been mentioned. To me, Ian LePerriere has not really succeeded with anything that he's been asked to do from a systems perspective. I mean, he was the coach of the power of the penalty kill, and the penalty kill was dreadful. He, you know, I hate judging a book by its cover, but he doesn't seem like that good of an X's and O's guys. He seems more of like a, you know, what I heard was that they kept him around because the players like talking to him, and you know, he's a likable person. So I think that you can't really give him the benefit of the doubt. At least I can't, because I've never seen him succeed, right? However, on the other hand, I look at the Phantoms roster, it's not that good. Like their leading scorer is Gerald Mayhew. I don't know who that is. You know, Frost is tied for the team lead in points. Who are these? I mean, Garrett Wilson, Max Willman, Rupsov, who's you know, I would call a bust at this point. Tyson Forster, who's really young. I mean, he could still be in the OHL. Hayden Hodgson, like Maxim Sushko, he's okay, but they just don't look like that good of a team to me. And the other thing is that we talk about Cam York. So to me, Cam York's a kind of player who, for him to really succeed, he needs to be surrounded by good players, because Cam York is not the kind of guy that's going to generate offense on his own. Cam York's the kind of guy who elevates, you know, his game with the guys around him, because he makes perfect passes. He always makes the right decision. But if you're making those right decisions and you're passing it to someone who's not all that good, it's not going to make an ounce of difference. So it doesn't surprise me that York is struggling, because he needs to be surrounded by good players, I think, for his true talents to kind of translate to something that will make the team succeed. So for me, I think LePerriere is a completely unproven commodity. However, I look at their roster and I'm like, yeah, like, you know, I'm not surprised that they're struggling, because their roster's not that good. So there's not a whole lot of positives to look at with the Phantoms right now.
Yeah, actually, Jerry Mayhew is one of those guys that is actually a pretty effective AHL player. So he's like a support guy that should keep them afloat, and obviously he's having a decent start. But they are minus 21 so far in the season as a team. And one of the things I heard about Cam York is that he's playing a little fancy, and he is making passes a little harder than they have to be. Just play a more basic game. Simplify his game a little bit, because he's used to doing everything in a high-end fashion. And it's not a high-end league. He's not, like you said it yourself, Dan, there's not tons of elite-level talent or talent that's going to make it to the NHL. I've seen Rupsov a little bit, actually had some good moments in the last game. Tyson Forster is not looking to pass the puck. He's looking to shoot too much. So Morgan Frost still hasn't gotten on track. When I watch the Phantoms, I see a team that looks listless. There's emphasis on physical play. They're not cohesive. They're not playing well as a team. And it speaks to some of the things I've heard, like you mentioned about maybe not being very sound X's and O wise. And being that they're a new coach, they might be slipping back into some of the habits that Scott Gordon kind of drilled down on. And look, Scott Gordon's a better AHL coach. The problem was that it probably didn't blend well with what AV wanted, and they wanted more consistency throughout the organization. We'll have to monitor that situation because these players are important. There are about 4 or 5 guys on that team right now that should project to be in the league, in the NHL. So we'll have to watch that. So, Chef, any final words in regard to that?
No, I think you touched on everything. I just think he's got to be on a short leash because, like you said, there's 4 or 5 guys that should eventually be in the NHL. 2 of them, I think, should be up by the end of the year, and you can't, like Dan was saying, especially with Cam York, he's the cheese on a burger. He's not the burger itself. He's the topping that makes it a little bit better. But the problem is if you're not cooking it right and it's not going out on time and everything, all the timing's off, it's not going to be any good. So, sorry, I had to throw a food reference in there.
It wouldn't be the same without you. Hey, and while we're at it, just a reminder, everybody, that the O&B Puckcast is brought to you by Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. 40 years of the best cheesesteaks and hoagies in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. With or without, it doesn't matter. Just get down to Jim Steaks, and you'll have a great time. It's great food in the classic Philly cheesesteak tradition. And listen, if you live down there and you can't make it, no problems. They use DoorDash. You'll get that delicious food right to your door. So don't forget, Jim's South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And
Dan finally got a couple.
Yeah, I was going to ask about.
He stuffed himself a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, I do.
It looked wonderful.
During my trip to Philly, I made 2 gym stops, so that was absolutely perfect. Just the best cheesesteaks you can ever get. Oh man, now I want another one right now. I haven't had dinner yet, so but yeah, able to satiate my appetite with a couple of those cheesesteaks, and they're just so good.
So I better move on. So if the Flyers are going to have an alumni game on November 15th, and it's going to be marked by the Hall of Fame with Paul Holmgren and Rick Tocchet. So you're going to have Team Holmgren and Team Tocchet. But I guess the most excitement is that there's a lot of names there, including some guys that haven't been there before. I don't think Pelle Eklund has ever played in a...
wow, really?
Yeah, in an alumni game. Let me read some of these names. Get a reaction from both of you guys. Obviously, Danny Briere, Donald Brashear, Dave Brown, Lindsey Carson, Riley Cote, Murray Craven, Bobby Esch, the aforementioned Pelle Eklund, Todd Fedoruk, Simone Gagne, Mark Howe, Adam Hall, he had a cup of coffee with the Flyers, Scott Hartnell down. Paul Holmgren, I don't think he's going to be playing. I don't think he's playing in the game. But Mike Knuble, Mitch Lamoureux, talk about a cup of coffee. And we have a Bullies representative, Reggie Leach, the rifle, back with the Flyers for that one. John LeClaire, Eric Lindros, Neil Little, Joffrey Lupul, Brad Marsh, Mike Mechanic gets out the suitcase for one more try. Scott Mellenby, Brian Propp. Just missed the Bullies era, but he was on that 1980 Stanley Cup final team, along with the 85 and 87 Stanley Cup final team. Shel Samuelson, Nick Schultz, Ron Sutter, Chris Turian, Bundy, Rick Tocchet, Scotty Upshaw, and Joe Watson. I don't think he's playing, but I could be wrong. Chef, your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of names there, right? I mean, there's a lot of names that you could go back through the times and just look at it and go, wow. I mean, seeing Lindros and LeClaire again together probably is worth the price of admission as it is. And then Pelle Eklund was one of my favorites growing up, and Mark Kyle was my favorite all time. I got a chance to meet him. He was just a hell of a guy. And you just go up and down there, and then there's some little flavored ones thrown here and there. So I mean, it looks great, man. It looks like it's going to be so much fun. They got a couple of people that spent brief times with the Flyers, but it's still it's going to be a fun night, and I think you got to give kudos. I mean, whether or not, and I know Dan will comment on this, whether or not you think that the two people that are going in are worthy of being in the Flyers Hall of Fame, that's a different conversation. But at least with this, at least the organization is showing a little bit where they're embracing their history, whereas before, up until this point, I feel like they've been shying away from it, that they need it. Hopefully they're understanding that their fan base is somebody that prides itself on its past while still looking towards its future. So kudos for all this. I think it'll be fun. Whether or not you agree with who's going in or not, it's going to be a very enjoyable day.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of just how good the Flyers were in so many different eras. Dan?
Yeah, that's a really exciting group of people that they're going to have there. I don't get as amped for these games as some other people do, but it is a lot of fun, seeing the list of players and kind of going down memory lane, and you think of some of your memories with these guys, Simone Gagne scoring the Game 7 winning goal and the comeback against the Bruins. And it's I guess as you get older, it takes on more and more meaning, these games with these guys. So it just kind of warms your heart. I was on Twitter, I saw Eric Lindros posting photos of his son wearing a Gritty costume for Halloween. Just, you think back to all the turmoil was going on when Lindros was here with him and Bobby Clark and all the ill will. And then, we're kind of past that now, and it just kind of warms your heart thinking about Eric Lindros out there, and is getting his kids rooting for the Flyers. And it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big assist to Paul Holmgren for making that happen, really, in terms of patching things up with the organization. And I think, Holmgren almost got them there, and we know what happened toward the end of his tenure. But I think there is a greater appreciation for what he tried to do with Mr. Snyder kind of looking over his shoulder. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse.
No.
But when holding so many positions throughout the organization and being part of everything but a Stanley Cup team, Stanley Cup final team, Stanley Cup finals, as a general manager, really rescuing the franchise in 2007. So it'll be fun. He's very much beloved and also respected for USA hockey as well. So, and Tocchet, I get Tocchet, Recchi, Gagne, all these guys that may or may not belong in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'll let other people kind of, toss that one around. But, gents, I didn't want the show to go by without at least a few words about what went down in Chicago in 2010. And I'll give both of you guys a chance to weigh in on the things that mean something to you. I'm just going to open with something that bothers me about it. And if you haven't heard, there was an assault of a player by a video coach during I think it was during the playoffs in 2010 in Chicago. And because the Blackhawks looked like they were trending toward being a Stanley Cup winning or a Stanley Cup finalist, they kind of shoved it under the rug. They did. And not only that, they let this guy go very quietly. His name's on the Stanley Cup. And this guy, Aldrich, much like the Penn State situation, he went on to harm other people, including 3 other people, young men, one of whom was a minor. And all of this because of whether it's cowardice, immorality, amorality, I don't know. It's a black eye for the league. And it seems like Gary Bettman played lawyer today when he talked about it. He gave some answers that were reasonable, but it looks like they were kind of unprepared to take a strong stand against something like this ever happening again. And like I said, it reminds me, and even before Anthony Sanfilippo said it, as soon as I heard other people were involved, because the the Blackhawks didn't make this known or push the case. I mean, even after they won the cup, they ran away from it. And that could have spared 3 young men this horror. And that's the thing that bothers me as much as the incident itself. Dan, I'm going to go to you and just, get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a very unfortunate incident. I read through the very long report that I think was a Jenner and Block put out, that the Blackhawks had an independent review done. And there's just so many things that are so wrong with this situation. And, the crux is, and the funny thing is that this all happened the same year that the Blackhawks beat the Flyers in the Stanley Cup Finals. Right. So it was 2010, and I think it happened in the not before the semifinals, or I think before the semifinals, this happened where, the player, Kyle Beach, I guess ended up back at David Aldrich's apartment, and there was some, sexual impropriety, sexual assault that occurred. And, the Blackhawks brass, including their GM, their coach, had a meeting about it because Kyle Beach brought these allegations to light to them. And they just kind of decided, hey, you know what, we're going to deal with this after the playoffs is over. We just, we don't want it to interfere with our quest for the Stanley Cup. And they basically decided that, their quest for the Stanley Cup was more important than finding out what happened with this sexual assault case, protecting their players. And then they really never did much about it. Joel Quenneville ended up getting fired last week, because of his inaction, whereas Kevin Cheveldayoff, who was the assistant GM at the time, who was in the meeting, was basically pardoned by Gary Bettman, saying, well, he didn't really know exactly what was going on, and he didn't, it almost feels like, you talk about, the Holocaust, and are the fourth lieutenants who knew what was going on, but what didn't really have much control over it, or they at fault because they didn't stand up and say something at the time, right? It's sort of like the same kind of debate. And I think that Twitter culture has kind of taken over cancel culture, and they kind of, everyone wants people's heads to roll. And I agree that I think that anyone who was in that meeting and didn't say anything or do anything at all after the fact should be punished. And Joel Quenneville lost his job, but deservedly so. And I'm surprised that Kevin Cheveldayoff has survived. It's very unfortunate. Gary Bettman had a press conference today to talk about it, and his answers came off like the lawyerly answers. He didn't want to get himself or the league in hot water. And this is coming from a league that has refused to acknowledge the connection between concussions and CTE, which clearly exists. It's basically Gary Bettman is a commissioner who's made a lot of money for the owners and wants to keep everyone's butts out of legal problems. But this is a slippery slope with this sexual assault case. So but it basically comes down to a bunch of men sitting around in a room who ignored the situation because they wanted to put the, winning the Stanley Cup and the playoffs over that. So it's just a really bad situation. And I think that we're just scratching the base of what's going to happen here, because there's going to be lawsuits. I think that there's going to be a lot more people that are going to lose their jobs over this one. And I don't know if ultimately Gary Bettman's going to be able to survive it as a commissioner, but I guess we'll see what happens when the lawsuits start flying.
Yeah, civil litigation can change a lot. I believe back at Nuremberg, the excuse was often told, I was simply following orders of my superiors. So, Chef?
Yeah, that's sad. That's the saddest excuse you'll ever hear. I mean, the most disappointing thing about this, and I grew up in a situation where there were a couple scandals at my school and stuff like that, and there were incidents of impropriety. So I was there when all that happened. You hear whispers of stuff, and you can't, unless somebody stands up, you don't say anything. But I was appalled at how many instances in this, and I think the thing about this is that there were so many chances that somebody could have stepped in and done something. There were multiple opportunities to stop it after it happened. The 3 to 4 weeks during the playoffs, anytime you could have stopped it. Anytime after the playoffs, there were so many opportunities where somebody could have stepped up and said something or done something, or there, even if you're handling it after the season because you don't, whatever. I mean, it's not justifiable, but it's, it's just irritating that nobody came forward and nobody sat there and went, because there were just so many opportunities to step in and do the right thing, and it's sad to say that none of them did it.
Yeah, at a bare minimum, after the playoffs.
Yep.
His name shouldn't be on the cup, and then you face up to it, and you save other people. Like I said from the outset when we broached this, you save other people the misery, because people like this, like Sandusky, like this SOB, they're predators. They're sick people, and what else can you say? Lives get turned over, and some people are actually destroyed by this, and that's bad. So listen, this part of life, but we want to enjoy the hockey season, and we hope that there's some kind of resolution here where something like this can't happen again, and that's all we can hope for. That's it. I don't know what else to say, but we do know this: the Flyers play tomorrow night versus Arizona, and they're at Pittsburgh on Thursday, at Washington on Saturday. We come back Monday the 8th with Anthony Mingione from Center Ice Philly, and also Off the Post podcast. Gotta listen to those guys. Yeah, should be a good show, and we're going to test the Flyers' mettle, and hopefully we'll get better news on Ryan Ellis. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan just for any final thoughts and where people can check you out on social media.
Yeah, no, I think I'm crossing my fingers about the Ryan Ellis situation, because to me that's the biggest deal going on with the Flyers right now. So I'm hoping that he's out for Arizona, but hopefully he's in for the games after that. So folks can follow me at dsilver88. Throw me a follow, and it's a big horse racing weekend coming up, so I'll be trying to make some money on the Breeders' Cup. So maybe I'll throw some picks out on my account too. But yeah. Let's go Flyers, and let's make some money this weekend. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, check his picks out. If you play the horses, or you like some of that action there, check Dan's account out. Chef?
Yeah, there you have it. The first commercial for the O&B Puckcast. There you go.
Wilbur, come on.
Yeah, there you go. I think I guess reiterate that sentiment that too. Yes, we need Ryan Ellis back as soon as possible. If it takes a couple more games, I'm fine with it. Let's just make sure that he's going to be a little bit more durable the second time around. So, yeah. And if they continue to play at this level, I think they'll be all right. But for a little bit, they need to get their lineup back soon, so. But that's where I stand on that. And you can dispute me on that at Chef to the left B on Twitter. That's Chef the number 2, the left B.
Good. November 10th, which would be after our next show, versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, is a target date for Kevin Hayes. I don't know if he's going to make that date, but just keep that in the back of your mind. And with that, I am Isaiah, ISAIAH, _520, Isaiah. Don't forget the _520 if you want to yell at me and my somewhat eclectic Twitter account. But as always, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. Please subscribe. It really helps us out. And if we have a YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a show. Follow whatever platform, whether it's a follow or subscribe, whatever is appropriate, because it does move us up when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcasts. And, of course, if you could give us a review, a 5-star review, particularly on Apple Podcasts. That would be greatly appreciated. We're also on SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify's hot, iHeart, Google, Deezer, you name it. We're on a lot of them. So until next time, back to talk to you again on Monday the 8th. Take care, everybody.